It's pronounced Frankenstein. What if a comedy remembered as pure laughter was actually forged in pressure, precision, and constant risk? Young Frankenstein, 1974, wasn't just a parody of classic monster movies. It was a meticulous resurrection, a film built like a drama, lit like a horror picture, and paced like a ticking experiment. Behind the jokes, chaos erupts. Original lab equipment vanishes. Actors fight exhaustion. Studios panic over tone. Sets collapse under technical demands. And every laugh hides a serious gamble. This video reveals 20 weird facts about Young Frankenstein, moments of risk, obsession, and creative defiance that almost broke the production. And stay to the end, because the bonus fact is the one detail even die-hard fans almost never hear. Watch closely, don't blink, and listen carefully. Number 1. The film refuses to look like a comedy. Young Frankenstein doesn't want to look funny, it wants to look authentic. What audiences didn't know is that the filmmakers commit fully to the visual language of 1930s monster cinema. Black and white isn't a gimmick, it's a rule. Lighting setups mirror old horror techniques. Shadows stretch, frames breathe. The camera never winks at the joke. It wasn't parody through mockery, it was parody through respect. By refusing modern shortcuts, the film traps itself in a stricter world. That choice makes every joke land harder, because the universe feels real. The laughs don't come from style, they erupt inside it. And that discipline shapes everything that follows. Number 2, the studio tries to stop black and white. Executives panic early. Black and white looks risky, old, unmarketable. They push back, hard. What audiences didn't know is how close the film comes to losing its signature look. Studio voices argue that modern viewers won't show up. That comedy needs color. That nostalgia won't sell tickets. But the filmmakers hold the line. Not stubbornness, strategy. Color would soften the contrast. It would dilute the homage. It would make the world feel safe. Black and white keeps the film sharp, unforgiving, elegant. The studio relents, quietly, and the film's identity locks into place forever. Number 3. The sets are built like real horror sets. These sets aren't playful backdrops. They are heavy, massive, overbuilt. What audiences didn't know is that many sets are constructed with the same proportions used in classic horror pictures. Doorways loom, ceilings stretch, staircases feel endless. Actors don't act intimidated. They are. It wasn't about comfort. It was about atmosphere. Crew members navigate narrow passages and uneven flooring. Camera placement becomes difficult, lighting takes longer, movement slows. But that weight shows on screen. The environment presses in, comedy collides with dread. The laughs feel earned because the world never lets up. Number 4, real lab equipment is used. This is one of the wildest decisions of the entire production. What audiences didn't know is that the iconic laboratory equipment isn't replicas. Much of it comes from the original 1931 Frankenstein film. Real artifacts, real history. Securing them is complicated. Transporting them is nerve-wracking. Every setup becomes a high-stakes operation. Damage is not an option. The cast works around pieces that carry decades of cinematic weight. No shortcuts, no replacements. It isn't nostalgia. It's inheritance. The past literally hums in the background of every scene. Number 5. The comedy is written like drama. The script doesn't chase jokes, it builds situations. What audiences didn't know is how carefully the dialogue is structured. Scenes are paced like serious drama. Lines breathe, silences linger, reactions matter. It wasn't about punchlines, it was about timing under pressure. That's why the jokes hit so hard. They arrive late, unexpected, often after a pause that feels almost uncomfortable. Comedy doesn't interrupt the scene. It sneaks in, and when it lands clean. Number 6, performances are kept straight on purpose. Actors are instructed not to play funny. What audiences didn't know is how strict this rule becomes. Performances are grounded, emotions are real, reactions are sincere, even when chaos erupts. Not exaggeration, not mugging, commitment. That restraint creates contrast. The world behaves like a horror film. The humor breaks through reality rather than floating above it. The result is tension and release. Fear and laughter sharing the same breath. It's a balancing act. And it works because no one breaks character. Number 7, the monster makeup is brutal to wear. The monster's look is iconic, but it's also exhausting. What audiences didn't know is how heavy the makeup becomes during long shooting days. Layers restrict movement. Heat builds. visibility drops. This isn't comfort, it's endurance. Scenes take longer, adjustments slow everything down. The actor must stay present while physically constrained. But that discomfort adds weight. Every movement feels deliberate, every pause carries effort. The monster doesn't just look burdened, he is. Number 8, the film is shot slower than most comedies. This production doesn't rush. What audiences didn't know is how deliberately scenes are captured. Lighting setups take time. Camera moves are planned with precision. Dailies are reviewed carefully. It wasn't efficiency, it was obsession. The slower pace frustrates some crew members, but it preserves tone. Comedy often relies on speed. This film relies on control. Every frame is intentional. Every shadow is placed. The result feels timeless. Not rushed, not dated, just right. Number 9, some jokes nearly get cut. Not because they're weak, because they're too quiet. What audiences didn't know is that subtle humor almost doesn't survive early edits. Studio notes question pauses. Silence feels risky. Laughter isn't immediate. But the filmmakers defend those moments. Because silence creates tension, and tension makes comedy explode. It wasn't about trimming fat. It was about protecting rhythm. The final cut keeps those beats. And audiences lean in, then erupt. Number 10. The cast is exhausted by design. Long days, late nights, minimal shortcuts. What audiences didn't know is how fatigue becomes part of the texture. Performances slow, movements grow heavier, reactions sharpen. It isn't cruelty, it's calibration. The wear shows on screen, characters feel lived in, stakes feel real. And go ahead and like and subscribe, because if this much pressure shaped a comedy this precise, what comes next reveals how far they were willing to go. Because the hardest moments are still ahead. Number 11, the musical sequence is a massive risk. The tap dance scene feels effortless. It isn't. What audiences didn't know is how complex the choreography becomes under heavy costumes and tight staging. Timing must be perfect. Any slip breaks the illusion. It wasn't just comedy. It was synchronization under pressure. Rehearsals stretch, retakes pile up, energy drains, but the scene lands because it shouldn't work. Comedy collides with spectacle. And somehow balance is achieved. Number 12, sound design is treated seriously. Nothing is cartoony. What audiences didn't know is how restrained the soundscape remains. Effects echo classic horror films. Music cues avoid signaling jokes. It isn't loud. It isn't obvious. That restraint lets the visuals do the work. Humor emerges from contrast, not noise. Silence matters here, and when sound enters, it matters more. The film trusts its audience, and the audience listens. Number 13, the accent choices are carefully controlled. Speech patterns matter. What audiences didn't know is how intentional accents become. Too broad and the world collapses. Too modern and the illusion breaks. Every voice sits between eras. Not now, not then, somewhere timeless. That balance keeps the world cohesive. Comedy feels rooted. Characters feel real. Nothing feels thrown away. Number 14, the film avoids modern references. There's a reason the jokes don't age. What audiences didn't know is how aggressively modern references are stripped out. Anything that ties the film to its release year is removed. It wasn't caution, it was foresight. By anchoring the humor in character and situation, the film escapes time. That's why it still works, decades later. Number 15, test screenings create confusion. Early audiences don't know what to expect. What audiences didn't know is how mixed reactions are at first. Is it horror? Is it comedy? Is it tribute? The film doesn't explain itself. It waits. And once viewers adjust, laughter spreads. Not instantly, gradually. That delayed reaction becomes a strength. The film earns its laughs. Number 16. The director protects the tone ruthlessly. Compromises are refused. What audiences didn't know is how often tone is defended in editing rooms and meetings. Notes are heard, but not always followed. The vision stays intact. Because once tone cracks, everything collapses. That protection keeps the film unified. Every scene belongs. Number 17. Physical comedy requires precision. Falls, gestures, timing. What audiences didn't know is how carefully physical moments are choreographed. Safety matters. Repetition wears bodies down. It isn't chaos. It's control disguised as chaos. That discipline keeps the humor sharp and safe. Number 18, the film gains respect over time. Initial reception is warm. Legacy grows slowly. What audiences didn't know is how the film's reputation builds through repeat viewings, late-night broadcasts, shared lines, quiet appreciation. It doesn't shout. It settles in. And it stays. Number 19, the movie rewrites parody rules. This film changes expectations. What audiences didn't know is how deeply it influences future comedy. Respect becomes the blueprint. Authenticity becomes the joke, not ridicule. Reverence. That shift reshapes the genre. Number 20. The ending refuses to explain itself. The film doesn't wrap things neatly. What audiences didn't know is how intentionally unresolved the tone remains. Joy mixes with unease. Laughter doesn't erase consequence. It ends true to itself. Balanced, controlled, honest. And that restraint lingers. Bonus fact, the film is studied like a horror movie. This might be the strangest truth of all. What audiences didn't know is that Young Frankenstein is often analyzed not just as comedy, but as one of the most accurate recreations of classic horror filmmaking ever made. Lighting diagrams, set construction, camera movement. It's all studied not because it's funny, but because it's correct. A comedy that becomes a reference text. That's the legacy. In the end, Young Frankenstein wasn't just a laugh machine. It was a love letter built under pressure. A comedy that refuses shortcuts. A monster made with care. If you enjoyed uncovering what lived behind the curtain, subscribe and share this with someone who thinks they've already seen it all. Because some films don't age. They reanimate.